The system is corrupt, and it's rigged, and it's broken.
Donald Trump declares the election is rigged. But what do Arizona Republicans have to say?
It's irresponsible to say that or to suggest that there's large-scale voter fraud.
And what are Southern Arizona officials doing to ensure fair voting November 8th?
The machine counts have been on the nose all the way through all the elections in all counties.
Plus, we introduce a new leader charged with overseeing downtown Tucson development.
Seriously, I'm on fire about this. I'm very excited.
And celebrity scientists may have something to teach our local scientists about connecting with the public. This is Metro Week. Hello, and thanks for joining us. One presidential candidate's repeated criticism of this country's election process raises this question: is Southern Arizona ready for a trouble-free election? We delve into that question, but first, a look at the week's top stories from the AZPM newsroom.
Arizona is on pace for what could be a record election turnout. The Secretary of State's office reports more than 800,000 early ballots have come in. That is more than half the original sent this month. Voters can no longer request early ballots, and any who don't have them must go to their designated polling places November 8th. The Arizona Board of Regents has closed an inquiry into the University of Arizona's 2 medical schools. The report of an independent counsel is being kept secret. The Regents ordered the inquiry after allegations surfaced about misuse of public money, ethics, problems, and leadership issues. A University of Arizona researcher made worldwide news this week. He reported on a genomic study on the origins of the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the United States. Michael Warraby says his team found that HIV was present in the country in the early 1970s, about a decade before scientists had thought. And Warraby says the man thought to have brought HIV to North America, known as Patient Zero, was wrongly identified. The Nogales border crossing is often where people from Mexico and Central America come, hoping to get into the United States. This week, a new group showed up, about 6 dozen Haitian refugees fleeing a series of natural disasters in their Caribbean island homeland. U.S. immigration officials say they are processing the Haitians' request to enter the country as refugees on a case-by-case basis. For more on these stories, visit our website at news.azpm.org.
With less than 2 weeks to go before the election, Pima County officials tell us they're beefing up their plans for a very large turnout at the polls. Reporter Christopher Conover is here to tell us what that means in an election year that has been anything but routine.
While Donald Trump is running for the highest office in the country, some worry his claims of a crooked system have the potential to harm voter confidence in the entire electoral system, including local elections here in Southern Arizona.
Together, we're going to fix our rigged system. Our system is rigged. The system is corrupt, folks, and I've been saying it, it's rigged.
This past week, Donald Trump on a rigged roll, repeatedly claiming there's widespread voter fraud.
The system is totally rigged and broken. First, the issue of voter fraud. According to Pew, there are 24 million voter registrations in the United States that are either invalid or significantly inaccurate. 1.8 million dead people are registered to vote.
The Associated Press reported Mr. Trump correctly cited findings in a 2012 Pew Center report. But the AP and many elections experts say voter registration problems do not equate to fraud. Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, a Republican, agrees.
Do Arizonans have anything to worry about?
I don't think Arizonans have anything to worry about. I think it's important for those of us who hold office to assure the voters that these elections are run well, that large-scale voter fraud is not an issue. These elections are run by the states with volunteers from both parties, tens of thousands of volunteers across the country. They do that on a nonpartisan basis. And so I think it's a bad thing to do to cast doubt, because you tell people, well, you know, my vote doesn't count. I don't need to go out and vote. It's irresponsible to say that or to suggest that there's large-scale voter fraud or that the elections are rigged.
Still, U.S. Attorney John Leonardo in Phoenix announced efforts this week to protect voters and prevent fraud, writing, quote, "It's imperative that those who have specific information about discrimination, voter intimidation, or election fraud make that information available immediately to my office, the FBI, or the Civil Rights Division."
Remember, you cannot deny anybody the right to vote.
Pima County is now training more than 2,000 poll workers who will operate about 230 polling places. While election department officials say fraud is very minimal, almost non-existent, they're still teaching poll workers to be on the lookout for problems.
I just follow instruction on how everything is supposed to run in the polling place. So everything is fair and square.
We need to have a free election where normal people can feel like they are being respected on their votes and that they will have their votes counted properly.
And the idea of a rigged election? This poll worker doesn't buy it.
The Secretary of State, who happens to be a Republican, is in control of the voting process. So it's a bit far-fetched.
There were, in fact, long lines and limited problems with processing voter registration in Arizona primaries earlier this year, and now heightened concerns about election integrity. Pima County officials anticipate an 80% turnout at the polls, so they have their work cut out for them.
Thank you, Christopher. Now we turn to the man who will essentially run the election in the Tucson metro area. We talked this week with Brad Nelson, director of the Pima County Elections Department. Mr. Nelson, thank you for joining me. Mr. Trump has said repeatedly that he believes the election could be rigged. Of course, he's talking on a national scale. He's called for people to go to polling places and watch and see how things happen. I know in some states that's not allowed, but Arizona does allow people to observe the election process. So what are the rules for that here?
Within the state of Arizona, observers are allowed, but those observers cannot be representing a candidate. They have to be a representative of a political party. So here within Pima County, the Republican Party, Democratic Party, Green, and Libertarian Party chairs will appoint the observers, and those are the only people who can serve as observers.
So they have to be appointed, that means ahead of time?
That's correct. I've asked the respective county chairs here in Pima County to let me know who their appointees are to become their political party observers and which precincts they're going to be serving at. They'll need to give me that information by the Friday before election, November the 4th, by 5 p.m.
And what are they allowed to do on Election Day?
Well, the operative word here is what their job title is. They are there to observe. They are the witness for their particular political party on what goes on at the polling place. They are not to interfere or to impede the process whatsoever. Certainly, they are encouraged to ask questions of the poll workers, but if there's any communication that the observer wants to have with their political party, perhaps they want to have a discussion with a particular voter, all of those discussions have to go on outside the polling place, outside the 75-foot limit. So observation is there predominantly for observation purposes, but if a discussion is necessary with a voter or with a political party, those observers will have to step out.
Just to be really clear, someone can't just show up at their polling place on Election Day and watch how the day goes.
That is correct. If a person comes to their respective polling place on Election Day, cast their ballot, and then out they go. They are not to loiter with inside the polling place no matter what.
If a voter or an observer at a polling place sees something that they find concerning, fraudulent, intimidation, what should they do? Who specifically should they call?
Well, certainly they can call the Arizona Secretary of State. They are the individuals who are overseeing the state. They will give the Elections Department a call in that respective county to address as necessary. That's probably the best way to go with a telephone call. If there is a situation that warrants perhaps poll workers being notified, they may be able to remedy it as well. But overall, a telephone number for the Arizona Secretary of State would be best.
Flip that, if a voter sees something they're concerned about when they are in their polling place, who do they call?
Certainly if a voter sees something in the polling place, and I'll even talk about being outside of the polling place that they think is an impediment to voting or intimidation going on, individuals who go to the polling places or in Arizona are familiar with what's known as the 75-foot limit. Outside of all polling places, there's a marked boundary where no campaigning or solicitation can go on whatsoever. Certainly, poll workers are concerned about what goes on inside the polling place and within that 75-foot limit. But if, say, further out in the parking lot, there's a gentleman or lady who's out there acting in a manner that is perceived to be intimidation, the poll workers are to go out and confront that lady or gentleman, and if necessary, call 911.
If an observer or a voter or a presidential candidate wants to make a complaint, wants to start a formal process alleging that there's been fraud or intimidation at a polling place, how do they do that?
I would probably suggest that they contact if they are a candidate from a particular party. Now, not all of the candidates on our general election ballot are affiliated with the party. Some of the municipality elections and things of that nature. I would probably have them contact my office, or if they think that's more appropriate to contact the Arizona Secretary of State, they can always call the U.S. Attorney for the state of Arizona or the state Attorney General as well. So there's lots of options open. I'm not certain which one would be best. I would say that if it's for a federal or state office, perhaps the Arizona Secretary of State or the Arizona Attorney General's office would be best.
If someone starts a formal complaint process, what happens on your end?
Well, certainly in past elections, if there's a situation that the state becomes aware of and we are not aware of it here locally, the state often gives me a call. Political parties, if they get complaints, often give me a call as well. I will usually, if the conditions allow, go to the polling place and remedy that as best as I can. And most situations, when I go out and confront the lady or gentleman who is being very passionate about a particular campaign issue or a particular candidate on the ballot, once I tell them what the laws are, they are usually brought into appropriate behavior fairly soon. I've had very few situations where law enforcement has actually been called. I think the last time here in Pima County has been up to 8 years ago. And that police officers, regardless of what department they are from or whether they're deputy sheriffs, are also cognizant of the fact that having law enforcement at a polling place has a chilling effect on turnout as well. So they get in, act very professionally, and get out just as fast as they can.
Election integrity has been a conversation in Pima County for many years. There's been several lawsuits actually involving that issue. And one of them recently resulted in a court order for your office to provide the scanned digital images of every ballot to keep those as a public record. And there's a gentleman who has expressed the desire to put them online so someone could check your count. How does that work on your end? What do you need to do now?
Well, this is one of those areas where the laws of the state of Arizona haven't quite caught up with the technology. Not just here in Pima County, but several other counties within the state of Arizona have switched to a digital system where as the ballot goes through the scanning device, an image of that ballot is actually captured, and then the software within the equipment actually interprets the ballots and adds the appropriate votes to the candidate or the yes/no question. So the law has been silent on what to do with those images. We are bound by law to hang on to the ballots for a federal election for as long as 24 months, and those only come out under court order. With the absence of any direction about the ballot images, there was no direction for any county, much less Pima County, on what to do. So recently here in Pima County, a voter has asked for a temporary restraining order to be applied for us to retain those ballots here in Pima County, not just for this coming election, but for all future elections going forward. And that's what we're going to do. The disposition of those images is still up for discussion within the court.
How do you react? How do you feel when you hear Mr. Trump saying that elections across the country are being rigged?
Well, certainly everybody's interested in election integrity. Here within the state of Arizona, we hand count, audit ballots. We have everything done under political party observation. So I think the idea that elections are somehow predetermined here within the state of Arizona just doesn't hold up to the facts.
Have there been any prosecutions of voter fraud in the last few years in Pima County?
My understanding is that within the state of Arizona, and at least one within Pima County, there were some individuals who were registered in 2 different states simultaneously, and they cast a vote in a presidential election here within the state of Arizona, as well as within their home state. That happens from time to time, but more and more of the United States is getting connected, Secretary of State's offices with each other state, and that is one of the ways that they prosecuted the individuals who were guilty of voting twice in the same election.
Are you confident that in Pima County we're going to have a fair election?
I am, and that's not just me saying it. Along the way, there are political party observations all the way. We have a hand count audit of our elections after it's done. It's not a hand count that's performed by the county. It's a hand count that's performed by designees of the political parties. They come and take a random sample of ballots that they decide. They do a random sample of contests that they decide, and if those counts come out correctly, then the machine count is assumed to be an accurate reflection. If, on the occasion that those hand counts do not come out to match the machine count, by law, we will actually hand count the entire election, and the hand count will become the official count of the election. That goes on not just here in Pima County, but all the counties within the state of Arizona. And we've had that law now for approximately 8 years. The machine counts have been on the nose all the way through all the elections in all counties.
Brad Nelson, Pima County Elections Director, thank you.
Thank you.
Turning now to changes in the heart of the city. There's a new CEO at the Downtown Tucson Partnership. Kathleen Erickson took the reins at the nonprofit at the beginning of the month after Michael Keith retired. Erickson came to Tucson from Michigan and led downtown organizations there and in California. She has a love for restoring old buildings and doing public service. Her resume also includes small business experience, owning restaurants and cafes. The Downtown Tucson Partnership hopes she'll continue the momentum of the downtown revitalization. She talked with Zach Ziegler last week about her vision for the city.
You've had a couple weeks now in Tucson. Kind of give us your initial impressions of downtown.
I'm so impressed with Tucson. It's a larger community, but it has this really kind of small town vibe. It has a lot of character, and the people are so genuine and nice. But the food, I have to tell you, I've been making a tour through the restaurants, eating my way through the downtown, I like to say. But it's been very impressive. The size of the downtown, the amount of developments, the businesses. I'm very impressed.
So what do you see as the job, the work to be done by the Downtown Tucson Partnership?
Oh, wow. Well, it's anything and everything downtown. It includes marketing and promoting the downtown, developing residential development, mixed-use development, recruiting retail, keeping the streets clean and safe, anything that will contribute to vibrant downtown. We like to think of it as kind of like we're creating this environment where people can be successful and enjoy and live their lives in the downtown.
You've had a little bit of time already. What do you see as going to be your first project maybe to get going here?
Well, I think the first thing is to meet with the board and go through and have a board retreat. And the board was already thinking about doing that. They wanted to wait until the new CEO came on board before they did that. The first plan is to create a plan. No, seriously though, to create a strategic action plan, a clearly defined vision and mission so that we can use that to help guide us forward. Of course, I believe that there's certain things that are going to be within that plan. Some things like a new branding for the downtown and the organization, streetscape enhancements, a wayfinding program, a new wayfinding signage program for the downtown. All of those things I believe will be incorporated into it and would be areas that I would recommend focusing on.
Do you see anything so far that you look at and say, you know, maybe a long-term goal for us is to go in this direction?
Yes, I see more regional cooperative efforts with districts and neighborhoods that are tied into the downtown. I think that the neighborhoods are intrinsically important to the downtown and its success. All the fringe neighborhoods, not only the residential, beautiful, historic neighborhoods, but also the more entertainment and retail-based ones like 4th Avenue and Main Gate. I see the streetcar being integral in that and tying all of these areas together and working together as a team and promoting the region, not just the downtown.
So in recent years, downtown has really picked up some steam in its redevelopment. How does kind of coming in mid redevelopment affect what you see can be done here?
It makes me look really good. Caterpillar's here, right? 600 new jobs. And no, I didn't have anything to do with that. It's definitely, you know, my predecessor, Michael Keith, and an extraordinarily talented staff and board that have really dedicated people, Rio Nuevo and the city of Tucson. So many stakeholders and community members have had a part in creating this vibrant, successful downtown. All these new developments with the AC Marriott and Caterpillar, as I mentioned, Roadrunner coming, the hockey team, and then nearly 500 residential units that will be built up in the downtown within the next 3 years. It's incredibly impressive. But me coming into that position, it makes it very exciting for me. I'm on fire about this. I'm very excited, and I look forward to having a part in seeing this downtown develop into really one of America's best downtowns. I'm confident of it.
So you had already mentioned some things as far as like streetscapes. What are some of the things that you see as far as lacking issues that are there and needing a fix?
Within the streetscape, I think, more of a uniformed appearance with the planters and sidewalks, lighting, amenities. But in addition to that, I think that there's a more unified effort in terms of marketing and cross-promoting, helping to get the word out about all the fabulous merchants that we have downtown. So I think we can have some improvements definitely in the marketing area and the communications as well.
So you mentioned the merchants. What have you heard from the people who are already in the area, the business owners, the residents, people like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, they've been very, very welcoming to me, and I've been in and out of some of the businesses already. There's so many that I need to do that on a daily basis, but and definitely weekly for sure. They are encouraged by all the development, specifically the ones that I mentioned, Caterpillar, Roadrunner Hockey, and they're also encouraged by the University of Arizona and the student population, evening nightlife. Everyone's very supportive and excited about the future of Tucson. It's really on the verge of exploding here. It's really cool. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We live in an age in which many have become science skeptics, questioning a range of scientific findings, including climate change. Now, scientists around the world, including at the University of Arizona, are trying to bring science to the masses. They're trying to do a better job communicating with the public.
We could have humans orbiting Mars in 2033.
I will add that whoever is orbiting Mars in 2033 is in middle school today.
It's pretty cool.
They are the stars of science. Astronomer Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, the science guy, Ira Flato on public radio.
Science Friday has become your trusted source of news and entertaining stories about science.
And research scientists in Tucson are also recognizing the importance of connecting with the rest of us outside their labs.
I've always been interested in making sure we give back to the community. A lot of our research money comes from taxpayer dollars, so I think it's important for us to tell the public what we're doing. That will help feedback, and it will help people support basic research and that will come with more money, so we'll be able to continue to do our research. I'm also the director of an observatory, so as the director, it's important for me to reach out to the general public so that we have the public supporting the observatory.
Williams and 7 other scientists participated in a training program called Portal to the Public to teach scientists how to communicate better with the public.
I would generally just tell people, this is what we're doing and this is how it works and whatnot. After, now we have a nice demonstration of what we're doing that's easy for people to understand. You guys like looking at stars? The biggest thing I learned is to allow people to do their own exploration, so ask questions of them.
Sarah Richmond studies the relationship between pollinators and plants. She hopes families who visit her fake flowers learn how animal pollinators do their job.
This idea that there's a diverse array of pollinator species on Earth and that they all use different strategies to get floral resources from flowers. So some may use sight, so like bats when they're foraging at night, they use their sense of sight, and then they'll prefer lightly colored flowers that stand out against the dark night background. Or like moths will use their sense of smell. So I have one flower that's scented, and then the participant is blindfolded. They have to use their other senses. At a minimum, it would be great just to get across that there's like many, many different species on Earth as well.
This Meet a Scientist event was at the University of Arizona Art Museum, of all places.
The art museum itself is an informal learning environment. And so it's a great place to have scientists and the public come and meet, because obviously members from the public are not going to go into their laboratories. And so this is a nice venue where that connection can be made. There's lots of connections between art and science by its inherent nature, the idea of exploration, questioning, discovery, creativity.
Astronomer Grant Williams joined me in the studio this week to talk about his experience in that program. What did you learn in this Portal to the Public program that will help change how you communicate?
What was most important was to allow the participants to discover things on their own, to ask them questions and help them discover by themselves rather than just telling them how things work. And that will help them, improve their experience in terms of science and, working with experts.
How often do you actually interact with the public as opposed to being the traditional, like locked away in your lab, although for you in an observatory?
Right. I actually interact with the public more than most scientists, I think. I'm the director of an observatory, and so I'm interacting with the public that visit the observatory, sometimes participating in more of the high-profile tours of the observatory. So I do interact with the public, and it's important for me to do so as the director.
In today's political environment, we hear about science skeptics, science doubters. I mean, notably, we hear that in relation to climate change or the causes of climate change. How does that sort of figure into the need for scientists to talk to the rest of us?
I think it's really important. I think that when we communicate what we're doing as scientists, when we do it to people at a young age, it gives them an understanding of how science works, and then they can use that in their lives to make, to do critical thinking, to make decisions, not just based on hearing sound bites, but actually doing their own thinking and their own research to understand whatever topic it may be that they need to understand better for themselves.
Do you encounter that doubt or skepticism as it pertains to astronomy?
It's not so bad with astronomy because I think we have a lot of pretty pictures that the public are very interested in, But there certainly are areas where some people may not believe exactly what's happening because they don't understand the scientific process, and that's why I think it's important for us to communicate to them, to tell them what we're doing and how we're doing it, and have them take that away from the experience.
You spoke about the need to communicate with the public because of the federal funding from the National Science Foundation that you get to do your work. Is that an indication that scientists, there's this trend that scientists need to do that more in order to secure that funding? Is that a risk you face?
It's important. The National Science Foundation wants us to have broader impacts to our research, which includes public outreach. But I think it's also important because we want the general public to have a good experience with science, and that will then allow them to support science and support that their taxpayer dollars are going into research.
We have some clips of Bill Nye the Science Guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Ira Flatow. How important is it for people like yourself at the U of A, who are not national figures, to take a more active role in promoting your science?
Yeah, I think doing it in your local community, those people are doing it on a national basis and are high profile, but the community here in southern Arizona wants to understand more about what research is being done here at the university, and it's a big area for astronomy, so understanding what's happening at the observatories that surround Tucson.
When scientists share their work with especially the younger generations, I mean, there's some potential to create new scientists there, right? I mean, is that another angle of this?
Oh yeah, that's hugely important. I mean, a lot of people ask me, why is your research important? How does it impact me? And one of the things I can point to is if we can communicate our science to the younger people and get them interested in science and having a positive attitude about science, they might want to go into a STEM field later on, into some research aspect that has a more direct impact on people. So astronomy is sort of a portal to get the younger generation interested in science, and then they might go off and do some very practical research later on.
You are the father of some young kids. They were there at the event, learning from the other scientists who were there. Did that give you a little jump start on trying to figure out how to communicate about the stars to children?
It sure did. I mean, I talked to them about the project that I was putting together at home and let them experience the project at home. So it gave me a feel for what kids of their age were going to, what their experience was going to be like. And also just knowing how to talk to kids at that age was helpful.
Do you otherwise talk to your kids about stars?
A little bit, but they're just getting to the age now where they're starting to get interested in science, and I've talked to them a little bit, and my older son, I've just now started to ask him if he wants to come up to the observatory. It's a long drive up there, and so he hasn't probably wanted to sit just to go up and see the telescope, but now he's starting to ask me about going, so I look forward to that.
Thanks so much for sharing your experience with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's it for us. Next week, we'll take a final look at the candidates seeking your vote before Election Day. Thanks for watching.